I'd like to welcome everybody tonight, Tuesday, January the 2nd, 2018, to our Town Hall Council Chambers. Our new look is here. We have nice, comfortable chairs for our constituents and our visitors. We'd like to wish everybody a Happy New Year. And let's move on with presentation from People Inc. on the new market tax credit. Joe?
Brian,
Yes,
if you want to introduce yourself.
sure, happy to. My name is Brian Phipps. I'm the Chief Development Officer for People Incorporated. And I had the opportunity probably 6 months ago now, I would say, roughly, to meet with Joe and your finance director to talk a little bit about our new market tax credits program. I've also had a number of conversations over the last year or so with Jennifer McDonald, Executive Director of the Front Royal Warren County EDA, about the availability of new markets tax credit financing. And I understand that you all are in the midst of evaluating some financing options for your new police department and some other items. And I'm here tonight essentially to answer questions, to talk a little bit about the program. You know, I would recommend that we keep this relatively informal, but hopefully it will be an opportunity for you all to hear directly from us rather than it being filtered a couple of times. And I can honestly say that I've worked with the New Markets Tax Credits program now for 7 years, and in so doing I've lost a lot of brain cells. So it's a relatively complicated federal tax program, and it's my goal tonight to really help shed some light on exactly what this program is, what it does, what some of the advantages of it are, and then allow you all to just take careful deliberation and decide which way you want to go. Yes, sir. Oh, did you have questions?
He was stretching his arm.
Feel free to just yell at me as we go through. People Incorporated is what's known as a community action agency, and we started in the mid-1960s down in Washington County in southwestern Virginia as a small grassroots community-based organization that was, really focused on helping families living in what's known locally as Poor Valley, with identifying some options for improving the quality of life there in their community. And since that time, we've grown steadily to where now we serve 17 counties and cities throughout the state. Began serving Warren County and the Northern Shenandoah Valley region in 2010. So we're now in Page County, Frederick, Warren, Clark, all up and down the road, and recently working more in the Prince William County, Manassas, Fauquier, Culpeper, and Rappahannock areas. So we've got a lot of experience in doing a wide variety of programs and projects that are really focused on achieving one thing in particular, and that's to help improve the quality of life for low-income people in low-income communities. In 2008, we received what's known as an allocation of new markets tax credits. And new markets tax credits are a federal program that began in 2000 near the end of President Clinton's administration that was really intended to help what's known by the Department of the Treasury as a low-income community, to help those kinds of communities to obtain additional private investment to get difficult to complete projects done in their communities. And the way the program works is it essentially allows organizations like People Incorporated, it's limited to what's known as community development entities. Those CDEs, as you may hear or see in some of the literature as we talk about it, are the only entities that are authorized to offer investors these so-called new markets tax credits. And what it allows us to do is to offer investors, which are primarily large financial institutions, we are able to offer them a new markets tax credit, which essentially allows them to realize a 39% return on the purchase of tax credits from my type of organization. So, for instance, if a U.S. bank, which is one of our investors that we do a lot of work with in our different communities, if they give us $10 million, we are able to offer them $3.9 million in return in tax credits. So what it really allows them to do is to take a direct write-off off of their federal income tax liability. So that's a primary economic motivator for them to purchase the tax credits from us. And then what we do is we take the money that they give us for to purchase those tax credits and use that to make very low interest rate loans or equity investments in projects that are located in the communities that we serve. So at a very high level, that's essentially how the program works. What makes the New Markets Tax Credit Program a little bit different is that it's specifically designed to allow us to offer financing vehicles or loans that you can't go down the road to a typical bank and access. That's really one of the chief motivators for the federal government forming this kind of program, in understanding that, oftentimes, and especially in low-income communities, the types of projects that we typically fund just aren't bankable. You can't necessarily go to a bank, get a market rate loan, and complete the types of projects that we look for through this program. So our New Markets Tax Credits loans are most often going to feature 7-year interest-only terms. So during a 7-year investment period, the loans that we make to our projects are going to be interest-only. It's a requirement of the program that our investor, who we sell our tax credits to get money to invest, can't receive any return of principal back during that 7-year investment period. So that, if you think about it, that's why the loans are interest only, because they can't get any principal back. So any funds that we receive are going to be interest only. On top of that, we are also able to offer lower than standard debt service coverage ratios, higher loan to value ratios. You think about, you go to a bank, they're typically going to look at your ability to repay that loan, and they're going to want to see you be able to generate, let's say, 110% of your interest payments in revenue so that you can pay it back. We usually don't get into those kinds of issues. We are purposefully trying to be flexible in making our loans, and we're purposefully trying to offer terms and conditions that can't be accessed anywhere else. One of the, I think, most appealing features of the program for the majority of projects that we work with is that, if you recall, when I first started, the economic driver for a New Markets Tax Credit investor is those tax credits themselves. So their economic benefit is being derived from the fact that by investing with us, they're able to get that tax write-off. That's really what they're looking for. What that means for the projects that we work with is that the amount of equity that we receive from the tax credit investor and being used to make loans to the projects we're working with, that funding usually doesn't have to be paid at the end of the 7-year investment period. So let's say, for instance, that $10 million investment I referenced a little bit earlier, that's worth $3.9 million worth of tax credits to our investor. Let's say that they give us $3 million in cash for that $3.9 million worth of tax credits. And we use that to make a loan, just for the sake of argument, to the town of Front Royal so that you can go to the police department. The way the project works is that at the end of that 7 years, that $3 million that our tax credit investor gave to us for your project doesn't have to be repaid. Their economic benefit has already been derived from the tax credit themselves. So they really don't want the cash back that they gave us. They've already been incentivized and really met their economic goal by receiving the tax credits in the first place. So what you're looking at are really flexible, low interest rate, interest-only loans for 7 years, underwriting criteria that are much better than what can be obtained in a conventional market, and really the absorption of the New Markets Tax Credit equity at the end of the investment period that you wouldn't have to repay. So I know that that's a lot of information to grasp, right off, but that's some of the initial benefits in looking at it. And I know, having talked with Jennifer and I think Board of Supervisors member Toby Carter and a lot of folks that, y'all got a lot of questions that clearly understand, that's very understandable. So I want to be available to you all to answer any questions that you may have. I understand that you do have some financing options available that on first blush sound really good to me, to be totally honest. New Markets Tax Credits are a wonderful tool, but it's also a tool that is not the easiest program to work within. And it may or may not be the best financing option for you all as a council. And that's what I'm I'm hopeful that I'll be able to shed some light on for you all to quickly being able to find the best option for the town here.
Questions? Bill?
Our staff has told us two concerns going
Yes.
forward. We looked at that 2.6, and if you run it out, we had them run it out over 4 different rates,
Uh-huh.
interest rates, versus the 2.6 we want.
Uh-huh.
Anytime that you go over that 4.8, one concern was that it would go away before the 7 years, the grant.
Mhm.
Do you see that forthcoming?
You mean the program itself would go away?
Yeah, 7 years, or that 7-year option we have under your loan.
The New Markets Tax Credit, as I said a little bit earlier, it is a federal program. And there's been a lot of discussion at the federal level about tax reform, as we've all seen and been able to watch the news. The New Markets Tax Credits program itself is included in the final legislation for tax reform. So it was not eliminated or wiped out. So any tax credits that we have already received, and over the last 7 years, we've received $149 million worth of tax credits. Anything that we've already gotten is safe. I mean, they couldn't take that away through tax reform because it's already been awarded to us. All of the discussion around the elimination of the program was related to future funding years. So right now, we're authorized up until 2021, I believe is the number. So what we were really looking at is going forward, would there be any more tax credits available in future years? Now we know that there will be. The program is authorized to continue, but that wouldn't impact any money that we currently have in hand or that we have made application for. So we're optimistic that there's really not going to be any change. And frankly, if any transactions, and this year, just for instance, we've closed 4. We feel very confident that those are safe and those won't be unwound due to any kind of tax reform legislation. And we know at this point that we're in pretty solid ground.
Okay, with that said, then, what you're saying is the application we have, your ink right now, is secure.
Yes, it wouldn't go anywhere.
Okay, the second part of that concern was, after completion of our projects, then we get that 7-year period. Now, it's not at the start, it's at the end when our project's complete.
It's at the start.
At the start.
On the day that we close on the financing, that's when your 7-year starts.
But we would close on financing after the projects are completed.
No, you would close as early as possible. They don't have to be complete for you to get the financing, is what I'm saying. I mean, you can close whenever your construction ready and ready to start moving dirt.
So the second part of that question was, right now, if we run the 2.8 and if the interest rate is, say, 5 at the end of the 7 years, so that whatever our balance is at the end of the 7 years, we're looking at a higher rate. Now, who gets that interest at the end of that 7 years? I know you can't predict whether it's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, but where does that? Do we have to go back out on the market again, or does it stay with your group?
We will exit from the transaction, so we will get out of the way.
So then you're out at the end of 7 years.
We're out at the end of the 7 years.
So we're
And we
out
take
of
the
the
new
market.
markets, and we take the new markets investment. So essentially what happens is any other debt that's on the project, let's say you went to a bank and they provide some of the financing for us. Anything that's left at the end of that 7 years is, that's between you all and whoever that lender may be. So we're out of the way. We kind of take our bags and go to the house. We did our job.
Okay. That answers my question.
Can I feed on that a minute?
Go ahead.
What you're saying then is that after the 7 years, you got a reduction of whatever it is, 30%, and you're completely out of the picture at that point.
Yes.
And then we go to the financial issue of some local financial institution.
Absolutely.
But going back to the original question, the thing that I would have is that we sent a letter to Jennifer McDonald to to you guys saying that we want to borrow 40 million, whatever it was, I don't remember, but around 30 million, maybe something. Then the county had another 50 million, which is around 80 million altogether. Now, is that 80 million already secured in your coffers?
No.
So there is a possibility then that the actual tax credits could disappear at any time this federal legislatures say that it can be done away with. So I remember in 2008, we had the captain's trade, same thing, and that lasted for a very short period of time. I don't even know if it ever got off the ground, but I know that they offered it to us and then it was taken away immediately because the government would not finance it any longer. And see, that's where I have a problem. I mean, we might be borrowing X number of dollars from you, and we're not borrowing yet because we're not ready to borrow any great amount. Now, we have got some money through the tax credits already, according to Jennifer, and I think BJ, that we have borrowed money from this tax credit, and not a whole lot yet. So, when we do get that money, if we do get the money, and if we don't take the 2.65, which is offered to us financially, then in 2 years' time, when we really need the money, you guys may be so-called out of business with the federal government if they do away with the tax credit. Am I correct on that?
I wish I had a crystal ball and we could foresee.
Well, I do too. That's why
But-
I'm leery of it.
Well, and I'm trying to think of how to parse it. You know, as I said a little bit earlier, we've received, most recently, $65 million was the amount that we received from the federal government. That was our most recent award. Right now, as of today, I have $11.4 million available to do additional projects. You know, the conversations I've had with Jennifer thus far, I know that, you know, the county had a whole lot of stuff that they want to do. You all have a lot of stuff that you want to do. Most often, these transactions come in the form of project finance. We identify an element of the project. I mean, of course, a community will want as much in new market tax credits as they can get. My advice to her has been, we need to prioritize what the greatest needs in the community are and start from there, because honestly, the largest project that I have ever done and been part of through new markets was the construction of a tire plant in Sumter, South Carolina, that created 1,600 jobs in a very low-income community. I mean, a huge project. It was over $120 million of total construction, and it was only able to get $55 million in new market tax credits. So there's really a calculation that you need to think about. You know, the likelihood that this small area could get $80 million worth of new markets allocation is slim. It's just the economics of it, and it's a very competitive process. So what I've worked with Jennifer on, and honestly, this hasn't been the best process for any of us, you know, a lot of back and forth. And it's been hard to kind of pin the tail on the donkey, so to speak, to figure out exactly what everybody's going after and what we're all looking for. I would encourage you all to take a look at what your needs are and say, okay, we want new markets financing to help us to do this part of our overall goal, whether it be build the police station, fire department, whatever that might be. Because at the end of the day, what it boils down to is, you know, our incentive for making these investments is we want to see benefit to the surrounding community. That benefit can come in a number of ways. It can come through jobs creation. It can come by increasing goods and services for the community, improving public safety. It can be a lot of different things. That's what we're looking for. But we're just, you know, frankly, don't have enough to be able to meet all the needs here in Front Royal or in any of the other 9 states that we have. So I think to try to answer your question, I have $11 million that's not going anywhere. I have an application pending for 75 that will know probably within the next 6 months whether or not we are going to get additional allocation. You know, so I have, at this point, you know, I've applied for more. I have some on hand. That's not going to go anywhere. So there isn't danger of it necessarily going away because of something Congress does. I think the danger is in when you're ready and whether I still have tax credits or somebody else has tax credits to help you do your project. When you do it.
So am I hearing you right, that the day that we want to have the money for, say, the police department, it was 10 million, 11 million, that you may not have any tax credits that are offered to us?
I have it right now.
Well, you have at this point,
I have it right
but
now.
how long is that?
I
You said
have
it
3
then.
years before I have to get rid of it.
3 years.
So all of it, I mean, it's probably the clock's ticking, so it's probably 18 months at this
But
point.
it's everybody's 11 million, not just ours.
Exactly.
That's what I mean. That's
Yeah,
what I'm saying.
it's all there. It's all project financed.
So there's no guarantee at the time that we need it that it'll be there.
No guarantees, no. I mean, not until,
I'll work on
not until we get to the point where we say, okay, you've got everything ready to go and we're ready to make a financing commitment. And please keep in mind, I know that you sent a letter and we've done some stuff. As with any bank loan, we have due diligence that we need to go through. We need to look at your plans and specs and all that stuff. I haven't gotten any of that stuff. So I fly blind to a point because sometimes I'm not real sure exactly if we're talking about apples and apples or apples and oranges. So there will be a due diligence process that we'll have to go through.
How long does that take?
Usually 4 or 5 weeks if I have all the information, just be able to pour through it. That's one of the hardest things I think for any project, that I'm working with to be able to understand is that, New Markets is it's a very complex structured financing program. A lot of information, a lot of work goes into it. Now, we can talk about theory and how it works all day long, but it is a financial transaction. We may not get into I guess as far down deep as the weeds as a lot of banks do in looking at it, but we do underwrite, and we do have to have access to the information to understand what it is exactly we're investing.
So let me get one thing straight. So the money is available, say today,
Sure.
but 2 big months from now it could be gone or part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it behooves us then to make a decision through our finance department whether we're gonna borrow the 10 million or whatever
Mm-hmm.
in the immediate future, very, very quickly, in order to substantiate the loan.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would agree with that.
And then at that point, our 7-year window begins.
Takes off.
Once
After we
it
sign-
closes, I mean, it's
When
not
we
going to begin
close,
until
sign.
money changes hands.
Right.
You can decide you want to do it, but once we close on it, that's when.
But that's the question. Do we get the money at the time of signing of the documents, and it goes into our coffers for that period of time until we need it to pay off or whatever? So it does go in there.
It goes into a bank account that will be in the town's name or whoever our borrower is.
Well, it'll be through up the EDA. They're gonna
Yeah,
be the-
and we'll have control on it and be able to say, okay, if you were building a house, you have to go to the bank and say, okay, I want so much money. It works very much the same way. You have to look at it and say, yeah, that's fine. But it is in whoever your borrower's name, it's there and it's available. So it's not gonna just evaporate.
But right now, it's only 11 million that you have.
That's what I've got. That's what I've got. That's not to say that, if things move very rapidly, I mean, it's very common, with this program in particular for groups to work together. I have relationships with a lot of other groups like us and say, hey, I've got this project, I need some additional allocation. So there are options to go out and find some additional funding if it's needed. But as I said, and to reiterate, it's not anyone's fault necessarily, but looking at, we've got to have a little bit more information to really understand. You all got to decide that's the direction you want to go, and we have to look at and say, yeah, this will work for what we're going after. And I do want to. It almost sounds like I'm being a deterrent, and trust me, I'm not trying to do that. Our interest rates for the loans that we make through the New Markets program, as I said, they're below market, and it sounds to me like they're 2.65%. Fixed or whatever the terms are, that's below market right now. I would say that seems to be a good rate to me. And my advice, not so much as a New Markets person, but as a community development person and talking with you all as a town council, strongly consider, what your needs are. And what I mean by that is, most of our New Markets loans are in the 1% to 2% range. That interest rate is determined upon financial underwriting and looking at how much we need to be able to service the debt to get these projects done. That's not far from 2.65% over your 30 years that you're looking at. So you're looking at some interest rate savings, and you do have the interest only period for those 7 years. I think the other thing to consider, and it's not necessarily something that we drive, New Markets tax credits transactions are expensive. And the reason that they're, and what I mean by expensive is they're expensive to close. These are, tax-oriented transactions. We would need the EDA if they're ultimately our borrower to engage a national accounting firm to do 80-page financial projections, for instance, on this transaction. Our projects pay for all the legal fees associated with them, and there are also fees to the CDEs that come out of those. So my advice is to really think about this, whether or not this is something you want to pursue. Do you really need it to get this project done? That's not an answer that I can give you. But it's not uncommon for just the closing costs associated with these projects to range in the $750,000 to $1 million, because they are complex and they're expensive. And that's me being straight up and honest and saying, these are expensive projects to close. So make sure in your deliberations that you're thinking about that. The tax credits themselves, the financing itself is viable. It works great. We've done some wonderful things with that money. But I also think, to be the devil's advocate, if you have an offer of 2.65% and it's fixed for 30 years, that may be a good option as well. Again, I can't answer that for you. But I do know the New Markets program. In funding them, we have 7 years of compliance that we have to maintain. There'll be a lot of information back and forth. For those 7 years, we will be a primary contact, and we'll need annual updates of information and audits and all those kinds of things. So it's not just here's your money, go do your thing, and you'll hear from us again. It's an ongoing relationship for those 7 years. So there certainly are some pros and cons in both.
Thank you.
I just want to be honest as I can about it. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so I think I followed Councilman Tewalt was saying. So once we decide to go this route and we lock the loan, we close the loan, money's ours. It's pretty much secured for the next 7 years until you guys are out of it.
Absolutely.
And then we go back out to the market to finance the remainder of the loan. The only incentive for us to do that right now, other than percent lower interest rate for the interest only for 7 years, is the reduction of roughly 30% of the total debt.
Yep. $3 million give or take.
Right. So we close on the loan. That part is secured once we close on the loan. That will happen.
Yes.
Right. So then we're not worried about losing that over the next 7 years. Or at the end of that, that's a done deal. Okay, because I think there's some questions around that beforehand. So really then, we're just trying to weigh whether or not, so we apply like we would any other loan. Okay, accept it or decline it, whatever, in the next month or 2 months. And then weigh whether or not the benefit would overcome the $3 million reduction, right?
Pretty much.
In a nutshell? Okay.
Plus closing costs.
Well, that's what I said. But I don't know what closing costs are on.
One quick, Gene.
I don't know what closing costs are on
About
a regular loan.
The only other question that I'd have would be,
I said 3/4, about
going back to
2/3.
the closing costs.
Mm-hmm.
Does that come off the top of the 10 million we borrow, or does it come, where does it come from?
It comes, you remember that $3 million I told you that I raised by selling the tax credits?
Yeah,
It comes out of that.
but we still have to pay it back.
You wouldn't pay back out, not out of the equity, not at the end of the 7 years, because we're talking about you don't have to pay that money back.
Okay, that's.
It comes out of the $3 million
It
savings.
comes out of the $3 million.
Exactly.
Which reduces your net benefit. I mean, to be totally honest, that reduces the total amount that you get from the credit.
Right, that's what I'm saying, it's coming off the top.
It's coming off of it. yes.
Right.
It's paid out of that.
So it all seems pretty clear to me. The only thing is, I think that we're missing a few numbers in here as far as an analysis of what that outweighs in the crystal ball of what the interest rate will be in 7 years from now.
Well, I mean,
For
and,
that.
the loans that come out of the New Market side are fixed, so that's not going to change. One scenario to think about it.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean? So after 7 years, though, you've talked about here's what it's going to be of 1.5% for 7 years, but then you guys walk away.
Yeah,
And we have to
think
go back out to the
about
market.
it. Think about it like this. Can I write on this? Is it okay?
Go ahead.
I'm going to do this very quickly, and I think Joe and folks have seen it. This is a typical New Markets tax credits leverage funding structure. So this is, entities, and this is how all this plays together. I just wanted to show you one thing. Remember I said we've got a $10 million investment. This is our New Markets tax credit. investor for the sake of argument, okay? So we have $10 million of allocation. That would come out of the 11 that I have on hand. Let's say my numbers are not going to add up, but I'm just doing this for show, just to help people understand how this works. So they're getting 3.9 million worth of tax credits. They're going to give us $3 million in exchange for those 3.9 million. The reason they do that is it takes them 7 years to get the economic benefit from this $3.9 million. You wouldn't give me a dollar today for a dollar tax benefit that you can't get until 2025. So there's a market associated with this. So for the sake of argument, they're going to give us $3 million for 3.9 million worth of tax credits. What that means, and I think this is the part where there's been some confusion, I can bring this much by selling my new markets tax credits. But our project, whether it be the EDA, the town of Front Royal, or some other entity, is going to be bringing $7 million to the table to help close this transaction. So we've got 7 million plus 3 million, that gives us our 10. Okay? That money comes to People Inc., which we then use to build, I'll just say police station, so it makes sense for everybody. So People Inc., we're going to make you loans to build that police station, $10 million. Now, the kicker with this is, the way that happens is, let's say we make a senior loan for $7 million, which represents the money that the EDA brought or that the town brought. We're going to make another loan for $3 million. Okay? That $3 million loan is reflective of the new markets tax credit equity that we get. So during our 7-year period, you're going to be paying interest on these two notes. Probably between 1% to 2% a year. Debt service. The interest that you pay, we won't get into that right now. So let's say we've got two financial notes, 7 million, 3 million. At the end of our 7 years, it's this $3 million that we have the ability to impact because that's what came from the new markets investor. If your lender, your $7 million lender, agrees, then you don't have to refinance at the end of the 7 years. Maybe this is actually a 30-year amortizing loan at some interest rate that you can lock in. So I think getting from that standpoint is you don't, depending on what this leverage source is.
So we can find that out.
You
going
can find
through
that on
before
the front.
closing.
You can find it on the front end. They could do a 7-year loan and say, okay, we'll match the new markets terms until the end of the 7 years, and then the interest rate's going to be X. And you
That's
just amortize it over the.
I mean, that's the biggest part of the puzzle for us.
You just amortize it over the balance of the life of the loan. There may even, and I don't know, where you're offered for the what you're looking at now. It may be a lender that has some experience doing this kind of thing. And if it is, then I'm happy to talk. I'm happy to come back. And, it's just up to you
I
all.
think the lender that we obtained it from was interest only at 2.1%.
So,
Have you seen
but
that
that
done
really
before?
isn't.
Have you seen it done that way before, where they locked in every year?
Very often.
Because I can't imagine anybody else wanting to do, everybody having the same hesitation that we're having. Like, what's going to happen in the next 7 years? Change of
A
administration.
lot of, one key difference, with a lot of our projects, they may have this loan up front, they know what it is. I very rarely honestly see balloons at the end of the 7 year. It's usually a 40-year term, 40 or in a 33-year amortization after a 7-year interest only period. There's a lot of different,
Okay.
there's a lot of different options that you can.
That makes me feel a lot better about it.
It
Looking
just,
at it.
it depends on the lender. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, it just depends on what their comfort level with it is and how they would like to do it.
So we can find that out in the period of 5 to 6 weeks as we're going through the closing costs, or going through the process, the application process.
Joe, sounds like we need to get moving on the application process.
Well,
Sounds like to me, we were misinformed on some things. That cleared a lot. Because I was already under the impression that money had been allotted from New Market Credit.
The
We'd
whole-
already
the
started
whole
with the
amount,
county
I mean.
and with us.
The whole 80 million, whatever.
Yeah.
I only got 65.
Okay.
So but, you know, it is.
Well, that's why I wanted you here, Brian.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
that's-
I'm
I
more than,
wanted to know it up front rather than hearsay.
and I'm more than happy to
And I
come back
think our loan
anytime.
debt was gonna be 15 for us with our projects, Joe, or BJ?
Yeah, I don't actually
About-
remember that number.
It was combined with the county, it was like 40 million, but they had,
Well,
Huge project.
my recommendation would be, and as I said earlier, you know, there's been a lot of discussion about different types of projects and, you know, building roads and police stations and all kinds of things. What I'm trying to push for and get to, you know, we've got to make some decisions, time's ticking.
Yes.
And then to decide, you know, what's your priority, what do you need it for? You know, I would love to be able to write a check for 80 million and make it all happen. We just can't.
But you only got 11.
I've got 11 right now.
Do we
'Cause
go
I've been-
through do we go through a application for each project?
Yeah. I mean, you know, you can combine, and this may be a source of some of the confusion, you can combine different project elements. You know, there's no harm in doing that. I mean, you can do different things with the money. I just need, you know, looking at it from my standpoint, I need some certainty on, and real numbers on exactly what you're doing instead of ballparking and, you know, trying to figure out, we want to do this, we want to do that. You know, we need to kind of, I'm very clear in looking, okay, it's going to cost you how much to do the police station, and this is where it's at, this is the address, and then just be more systematic. So, you know, we could combine some things, but at the end of the day, there's only so much credits available. So, there's nothing that says you have to do the whole thing with this. You can use this in conjunction with other financing. There's a lot of options, but one, I think you need to decide if you want to pursue it, and then number two, we need to come back up and, you know, have a roll up your sleeves kind of work session and say, okay, this is what we're sticking in, and this is what we're trying to do. That's the advice I can give.
BJ? Sounds like,
I'm sorry?
I mean, we already committed to the police department, so we need to get paperwork.
Yes, we're going to deal with Jennifer to get the ball rolling because all this is facilitated through the EDA. So we'll have to get the ball rolling. Close it.
We basically,
We voted 2 months ago to go to use, we voted on that, to use New Market Tax
I
Credit.
think we voted on that.
Sure.
Yeah.
We voted to do it through the process, but we didn't vote to borrow the money as of yet.
August 8th of 2016, and on May 1st of 2017, we amended it to pass the tax resolution of support and participation in the New Market Tax Credit Program for the 5 projects, and one of them being the police department.
I would have liked to even known that.
See that?
So-
See, these 5
Yeah.
projects are no longer available. Only one project is available, and that's the police department.
That's the only one we're interested in.
Well, no, I
Well,
thought we were
as
interested.
they get
Well,
more
that's
money.
where part of the confusion.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still confused on.
Well, that's, you know, me being I'll say disinterested in terms of, you know, I'm not sure, I don't know either. So I guess that's what I'm saying. And if we can get some certainty around exactly, you know, if you have financing gaps, that's really what we're looking for. You know, something that's hard to develop, and it's difficult to get done, it needs a little bit of help, like equity to come into it to make the project work. Those are the ones we want. And we want the ones that are going to, you know, have the biggest benefit for the community. That's really what our considerations are. Other than that, though, I mean, we can look at it every way to Sunday to try to figure out something that works. But you know, you all need to be comfortable with the process. Number one, it's a long-term commitment, and number two, then we've got to really start rolling up our sleeves and really thinking about how we want to do this.
Joe?
staff's waiting on direction from council. I mean, I know we did pass last year that resolution to support the New Market Tax Credit for the following projects.
Gentlemen?
What are you recommending, Joe?
This is some good news. If we can close in the gap with that 7 million is what he was talking about, I think a lot of our concerns are going to go away completely. But until that 7 million is secured, I still have some reservations. What about you, BJ? What do you think?
Well, can I ask the question? The 7 million that we're gonna have to borrow immediately before we sign documents, can we get it at that 2.65 BJ?
The EDA has secured a interest-only loan for that 7 million. actually for additional projects. And I believe it was at an interest rate of 2.1%, but it's interest only, and we'll have to refinance it at the end.
Into the 7 years.
Yes.
See, that,
See,
and
that's
that's the
what
key.
scares
I mean,
me.
it depends on what your source is. And I know that Jennifer does, we've talked about it, and she does have financing available. If you're going to use that, that's fine, that's great, but you do have that open-ended question of what happens at the end of the 7 years.
See, that's what scares me. If we got a loan that was 30 years already secured, basically, at 2.65, whether we save a little money on one end or the other, it could go up to 6, 7, 8%. And you just said a while ago, word I hate is what is called a balloon loan. And a balloon loan, I had one on my home years ago.
Well, and that's what you're looking at. I mean, if you have to refinance it, that's essentially what it is. We can get rid of this one, but you're still gonna have, in our little scenario we had, you're still gonna have to do something with this. And if it's hard debt, and it's just 7 years, and it's gotta be refinanced or paid off. one of
That's
the-
right. And that's what scares me.
But he was saying that a lot of places just do the 30-year loan for the 7 million right off the bat, not do the balloon.
Like
And
you
then-
did right
Don't
Yeah.
lose, don't lose
That's common.
Well,
the fact
if
that what he just said about that.
if that's a possibility of getting it down at that
But you will
rate.
know it up front. That's what he's saying.
I think the one issue, and as BJ pointed out, is if you use the financing source that the EDA has secured, you know right off that that's interest only for the 7 years. That's gonna have refinancing.
Right.
See, that's what
So that's a no.
refinancing.
There's nothing to prevent you from looking at other options. The one you have available to you right now would need to be refinanced. So there are other options to do it. It's just, if you want to start looking for it, I guess is really the main consideration.
But Brian, if we go out and secure our own 7, wouldn't that screw up the balance of that 30% of the loan that you borrow, though? Wouldn't that impact the overall program?
It will all
if
be
the-
tied. We adjust, basically the same thing based on the amount that you get. So, and we would want to put some firmer numbers on it. I mean, I use 10 million. What we would want to do is to sit down and say, okay, whatever the town's project is, whether if it's the police station and other things, we'll figure all that out. How much is it going to cost to do that? It's not going to be right at $10 million. It's just going to be either north or south of that. We're going to tie everything to what that number is because our goal is to get you the amount of money you need. By doing that, I'm going to be able to tell you how much I can get in new markets equity, and then that will tell you how much your other loans are. But the first step is to really figure out where do you want to start. So the 70-30 thing we've been talking about, that's just rule of thumb. I mean, it's just based on, generally that's what it comes out to be. It's going to be some odd number that nobody ever thought about at the end of the day. So we have some flexibility to size it appropriately to get you what you need to get done, because the last thing we want to have happen is to do a loan and the projects can't be built. So we're going to make sure on the front end that you can get all the money you need to get.
If we were to finance the 7 million, is there any risk that we may have to repay that 3 million that we should incorporate into there?
The risk, and this is not the popular answer, and it's really rooted in tax law. I can't tell you when this transaction closes that our investor, the investor can't say without question that at the end of the 7 years, we're going to forgive that debt. Because if that happens, then it's not a real loan. And that gets into all kinds of tax-related law. What happens, the way that it works, is on the day of closing, and as part of the negotiation process, there's what's known as a put and call agreement. There's a put and call agreement, which basically says that at the end of the period, that the investor will put its interest in the project to an affiliate of the borrower for $1,000. So basically what it is they're saying, okay, at the end of the period for $1,000, we'll let you absorb your own loans. I have never known of an investor not to exercise that right.
That's what I was just going to ask.
So
That's never not happened
it doesn't happen.
Sure.
I mean, but they can't, from a legal or tax standpoint, agree up front and say, I'm going to forgive it at the end
They
of
can't
7
make a
years.
promise to.
Although that's the expectation. They can't document.
Gentlemen, what's right? You want to go? You mark it?
You gotta give some numbers.
I would think that we should look into possibilities for fixed term financing instead of the interest only for 7 years. And if we can find numbers even in the ballpark of the 2.65, I'd like to move forward with the 70-30. That seems to make a lot of sense.
just surprised that we haven't moved forward, because I was under the wrong impression then. I thought we were already in the system and things were progressing. I think we need to move forward and have this moving now, and then we get, because we're already on construction with,
We're getting ready to start footers next week.
the police department, we're already moving. And from my standpoint, I'm very concerned that we were under the assumption that all this was already done and this is what was happening. So,
Well, you know, again, my whole philosophy's been, and I've been fussing about this ever since I heard of it. And I just heard tonight exactly what I said to you guys quite a few times. And I'm still not satisfied with the tax credits due to the fact that if this thing comes up at the end of the 7 years, and again, if we can't get the financing on a fixed rate, then we're gonna be worse off than taking the 3.9 million and just paying the straight loan at 2.65, and we'll be money hit. Because when you get into these government finances, it takes $1 million to close a loan. There's got to be major hurdles, problems somewhere. I mean, that just blows my mind. But when we talk about balloons, I had a mortgage that I had 6% and went to 12 because I didn't read the fine print. And that's what I got caught with back 10 years ago. And these things bother me. I'd rather get something that I know is factual. If we can get the 2.65 and make sure we already got the 30-year done, we're ready to roll, and let's go with it. That's my problem, my situation. Because I think in the long run, we're going to be paying more by doing the tax credit than we are with 2.65. And if anything goes wrong and we can't get that later on, it goes 4, 5, 6% or a balloon, we're going to be hurting.
I can tell you one thing, we need to make
We have all the
decision.
information we need for BJ to move forward, and as the numbers come in, and we're not committed until you close on the loan, I mean,
We're gonna be getting bills soon from the construction contractor. BJ, will we?
use your table of information,
Not
please.
not from construction contractors. Should be coming any day.
And I hate to be the culprit here, but where are we getting the $4 million for Lakefront Parkway? Where's that money coming from?
where's all that?
I thought that was
I
it.
was confused.
I mean, we're gonna have to float a loan or a bond system to pay for that if we can't get the 11 million at the whole process. So we got 10 million or more invested in the police department. Where's the other 4 million for Lakefront Parkway? Where's the 800,000 for the sidewalks we're getting ready to do? Where's the money for the Main Street connector? Where's that coming from? I think we got some problems that we need to figure out before we jump into another boondoggle. I mean, no offense to you, but I think in my opinion, we were sold a line of goods that was not factual. At least that's the way I see it.
The way you laid it out left us in a quandary, as far as I'm concerned right now. Because we've already started.
That's right.
What's the quandary? We still
The
wrap.
quandary
still move
being
forward.
that we've got police department under construction right now, and I was under the impression that we were already pulling money to start all this in the Leach Run project and all that, and now I find out he only has 11 million available.
So
And no application has been made.
right. So we go through the process.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. That was it.
Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm just concerned that all this wasn't forthcoming.
Well, I agree with you with all the other projects, but if Mayor Tharp was asking about,
Yeah.
you know, what are we doing next? My vote is to continue to move forward with the new market, go down the path, and we'll get some hard numbers on it, and then make a decision whether or not to pull the trigger
Yeah, but do we lose the 2.65?
No,
in 4 weeks.
that's what you told us previously. It's still open to
Well,
us.
we've been sitting on that number for a
But
while.
Ms. McDonald did.
Still open to us. So I agree with you. We go ahead and make application for the police department at least.
Yeah.
Gary?
I mean, I'll go along with you guys, but I'm not gonna get outvoted. But I think we're going to be in a matter of hurt within 2 years.
Well, you know, I can claim doom and gloom too, but, you know, you've got to look at a business decision here.
My business is, if I got a 2.65 guarantee for 30
Bird in
years,
hand, I
to
understand.
me, that's in hand. The bird can fly way over on this hand, I'll have nothing.
But if you never make application, you never know what you're doing.
Okay. If y'all just gonna say make application, then I'll say that, but I think that by the time you get there, you will find it's not gonna be.
Well, the easiest thing to do is take the 2.65, put it behind us and just say, you know, but we have an opportunity to double what we would pay for the 2.65 with this reduction, whether it's 3 million or 2.5.
So it gives the 2.65 more legs.
Not if we can't get a loan for 7 million at 2.65.
That's what we're gonna find
To
out.
go through this, and then whether it's a balloon or whether it's going to be a projectional interest.
Hear what he's saying, Gene, or he's,
I've heard what
Councilman
you're
T,
saying.
what he's saying, that the 2.65 is available to us
Yeah, but-
right now, and it will be available to us.
Well, according to what Jennifer told us, it was only good for about 90 days. You know, somewhere along the line, we're being misinformed either through something over here or something over here.
Well, what I know is, looking at the numbers, our break point in the plain fixed 30-day was around 4.8. With a roughly 30% write-off on the table, that number's higher as far as the break-even goes. So in 7 years, is it gonna be higher than 4.8? I don't know. Is it likely to be higher than maybe 6? I mean, again, this changes the outcome of the numbers that we're looking at, but it does change it in our favor.
But we were only worried about that break point because we didn't know, we thought it was variable.
We thought it was going to be variable. We thought it was going to be interest only for the first 7 years. If we can lock in that portion, yeah, if there's a smaller portion of the 330 that needs to be dealt with, we can handle that. I think that this works to our advantage. We should move forward and move forward quickly.
Okay. Joe? Move forward. New market tax, TJ?
We'll pursue and see if we can get a loan that will allow us to pay interest for 7 years and then lock into that same rate for the additional, once we start paying principal.
Yes.
We'll see what we can do.
Were we afraid about paying principal sooner than 7 years? Because I saw a few different plans in here
The
for a couple of
requirements
years.
for the new market tax credit is we can't pay principal for the
But we
first 7
can
years.
take principal and set it aside.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, we can
So
do
that
that.
we'll
Yeah,
have
and that is
it,
enough.
in 7 years, we'll have a good amount accrued,
Got it.
which will give us another buffer. So, thank you very much for coming down and.
That was very
had
helpful.
some
You're
light
very
on us.
welcome.
And, hopefully,
If you
BJ
know if you need
will,
anything else, guys, I'm
hopefully
more
BJ
happy
will
to help.
be,
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
gets with you soon.
Thanks, guys, appreciate it.